Okay, so welcome to AutoCAD 2014. I'm just going to go through a few of the basic commands that you'll need to know and a few of the settings that will help you draw with accuracy and speed. Essentially, with AutoCAD, you work in this black area here called model space. You have commands at the top of the screen. They're separated into different tabs, the ribbon tab, and subdivided into small areas. So you have drawing commands, modifying commands, layer commands, annotation, so on and so forth. Today I'm just going to focus on the drawing commands and the modifying commands. Also, what's important to note is you have a command line, and that will provide you some instructions of what to do next when you're in the middle of a command. You also have settings at the bottom of the screen here, and these settings, they might be icons. If they are icons, it's usually got a setting of use icons. If you hover over them, it'll also tell you what they are, and they'll also give you the function shortcut key. I prefer the words. The settings that you want on are ortho, because it'll draw straight lines. Object snap, which I'll explain in a minute. O-track, and dynamic input. Okay. Object snaps, you can actually set the individual snaps OS. And you want to have the midpoint, perpendicular, quadrant, and intersection ticked. The default is to just really have endpoint and center. You can also have tangent, but I might untick that for now. Okay. I'll explain what they are in a moment. Essentially, AutoCAD is command-based, and you can click on the icons here, or you can use keyboard shortcuts. So a line, go from here to here, and you can draw continuous lines. Object tracking, if I hover over an endpoint where that square is, it actually lets you know it's an endpoint, and move, I'll get that green line. So even though my cursor is around the midpoint of that line, there's another little X symbol, and if I click with a left click, it'll definitely line up with that endpoint. Okay. When you hover over an object, it'll highlight, and I can select it. It'll have grips, which you can use to move or stretch, but I advise against doing that where possible. I'm going to undo those moves, Control Z. Okay. The main difference between a line and a polyline, I might have it line up as well, go across, line up the O tracking, is that individual lines, while we drew them continuously, will always be individual objects. A polyline is connected. You can make a polyline individual lines by exploding, so they become individual objects. And conversely, you can make single lines become polylines with the polyline edit command, PE. It'll ask you to select a polyline, left click. Often what you're selecting is not a polyline, it'll ask you, do you want to turn it into one? And just hitting the space bar for enter. Yes. You want to join it with other lines. You can click on each of the individual lines, or you can do a crossing window from the right side of the screen. Do a quick crossing window that is shown as dashed and green. I only have to cross over part of the objects. And I can hit space bar. I've got a polyline. The reason you want to have polylines is for when you use the offset command. Offset, so that's copied. It's over here. It's also just O as a keyboard shortcut. The offset will ask you for a distance that you want to offset. So I might offset, say 100. Hit enter or spacebar. Because I'd already selected the object, I don't have to select it again. And it just asks you which side you want to offset to. Offset to the hand side. Okay, and you can keep doing that as the command goes. As you see, with individual lines, it's a lot more laboursome to offset because now you have to neaten up all those corners. There are a couple of different ways to neaten up those corners, and again, in the modify box, you can trim them. With the trim command, it'll ask you to select something to trim to first. So if I want to trim this line, I don't just click on that line. I have to select this line first, accept the right click. That's all I want to trim. And then click on the line I want to trim. I cannot trim this line back to here because I did not select this line as a trimming object, something to trim to. That can be quite annoying. So when using the trim command, I can just restart the last command with the space bar again. You'll notice in the pointy brackets it says select all. So there's one option within this command, and by hitting enter again, everything becomes something to trim to. So I'll trim, that line, and so on and so forth. If I restart the command, everything's something to trim to. I can't trim this line because it doesn't cross anything else. You can trim within polylines because they are otherwise connected. But if this doesn't cross anything and it's not connected to anything, I can't actually trim it. If I wanted to delete it, I could just simply select it and hit the delete button or the little eraser. Another way of creating corners neatly and quickly is using the fillet command. A fillet command will ask you for a radius. The default is 0. If you don't have a radius, you leave it at the default. You really just have to click on the side you want to keep, and you'll get a neat corner. The same goes for the chamfer command. Again, rather than creating two different distances, just leaving them at 0. You can do that. Okay. I might just undo those few commands that I've done just to put them back. Okay. If you want to fill it, you can use F, click on the icon. If you want to do more than one corner, you can click on multiple. But again, you've got to be careful what it is you want to fill it, because if you click on the wrong side, you lose the lines you want to keep. Undo that, Control Z. Now on the right side. So you can do undo in the middle of commands. You can even notice here there's an undo button. That'll undo what I last did. Undo. Okay. Extend works pretty much in the same way. You can either select what you're going to extend to, accept it with the right click, and then click on what you want to extend. I won't be able to extend this line because I did not select this line as something to extend to. If I want to change that, I can restart the command, extend, click on the extend button, or EX for extend, and then hit spacebar again. Everything becomes something to extend to, and extend these back. Okay. You'll notice that even while everything is something to extend to, you can't extend a polyline. Okay. If I wanted to have this particular line hit there, I would have to explode that first, extend, everything's something to extend to, and then I can extend them. Okay, trim it back. Notice I'm hitting the space bar twice because I just want everything to be something to trim back to. Okay, I'll be able to trim out this. Oh no, they're exploded now. I won't be able to trim those out. That as a polyline, again, I can trim them out. Moving objects, if you select the move command, or M for move, if I select from the left side of the screen, I have to cover all of the objects, because if I just cover endpoints of one object, or only select the one, because this is part of a polyline, I'd have to select right over this edge to select all of it. Okay. So most people tend to click on or select, from the right side of the screen. If you want to deselect, hold Shift, and you can deselect objects. Okay. If they're connected, the lines will be as one. And you can also use crossing windows to deselect quickly. When you have finished your selection of what it is you want to move, right-click will end that selection, and you can move from one point to another. Okay. Before, when I mentioned the dynamic input, you can move objects. I'm selecting that. I've selected them first before I started the move command. Now when I start the move command, it's just asking for the base point because I don't have to change the selection. And I can't change the selection once I've made my selection before starting the move command. But if I want to give a dimension, you'll notice in the box when it asks me to specify my second point of displacement, it kind of disappears a bit. There's a distance highlighted in blue. Even though I can't see it at the moment, I could nominate it to 2 meters, 2,000. Okay? Because I was moving in the X direction. If I want to move in the Y direction, no, I'm pointing down, I can move it 1 meter down, 1,000. Okay. If you want to give coordinates in two directions, the X direction is first, so I can move. So even if I'm clicking a base point, moving it up from relative to that point, even though I'm in the Y coordinate, I would be moving it across 2 meters, and a comma will allow me for my Y direction, and that will be 1 meter. Okay. So it's gone across 2 meters and up 1 meter. Okay. So your X coordinate is always first, comma, and then the Y coordinate. Similar process for copying. Copy command is here, or CO for copy. And again, I've chosen the command first, and then I can select my objects afterwards, finish that selection either with a space bar or right click. On right click is a lot faster. You might find space bars just as fast. And then from one point to another, I've made copies. Make a copy there. I can make a copy there. Okay. If I want to trim out some lines, hit space bar twice, and I can use that crossing window from the left side, so I don't have to cross over all of the lines. Okay, through that. Okay. 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 I'm just trimming out lines I don't need. Okay. Might look like a couple of windows. Might extend. Again, everything's something to extend to. There we go. Oops, I forgot a little line. Oops. There we go. Look like some very sleek little windows there. If I wanted to stretch the windows above, the stretch command is just below the copy. And I recommend using this rather than grips. With the stretch command, you have to go over all of the endpoints of the lines you want to stretch. I want to stretch these lines, and these lines, and I want to essentially move these lines up. So I can move. A crossing window must be from the right side. So one point left click, another point left click. Accept that with the right click that's what I want to stretch. Specify a point, could be anywhere, because I want to stretch that up 1 meter. Again, you want to be in, I'll undo that for a moment. You want to be in ortho when you're stretching anything. So turn that off, ortho off, stretch. I might think that it's straight, but it's not. And you can see that there, that is not a straight line. And I can undo that quickly. Control Z, put ortho on, and do the stretch again. You don't want to go over that bottom line. Okay, you've got to be careful what it is you cross over and you stretch. Those stretching lines. It's really just the one end point of the line that you need. Okay, just do a random one for now. Okay, well that's just a few introductory commands, and I have a play around with a few different drawing commands and modifying commands for now. Thank you. Okay, let's stop this recording. This is not going. Okay, this is all recording, sorry.